Hi guys, in this video we're going to look into live mesh and quad draw. The primary way that this is used for is for something called retopology. So topology being the makeup of our mesh here with polygons and the flow of polygons. So this is super important for our models so that our edge loops flow around a model. So if we have a look at this part here, this eye, this isn't terrible, but we could have more of kind of a flow of the polygons around this area here, so that the topology kind of flows around the eye with the skin and then flows off into the back here. Okay, so the first thing that I am gonna do is I'm gonna click this little magnet thing up here, and this is gonna make my mesh a live mesh, or a live surface that you can see here. So if I click this, it's gonna put this in, and I get this little pop-up saying that it's now live. This means that anything I create is now gonna stick to this mesh here, and the reason we're going to use this is because when we use mesh tools and quad draw here, this is going to allow us to create new topology. I'm going to create a new mesh here. So if I click, you can now see this little yellow point has appeared, or yellow-green point there, okay, and that has made a vertice for me there. So I'm manually drawing the topology of this mesh. So I'm going to click and make 4 points for my quad here. Let's just put the default shading on it, it'll make it a bit easier to see. Okay, so now if I hit shift, you can see I get this sort of representation of where a polygon could be. So if I hold shift and then click whilst on this quad draw tool, I now create a polygon. And because I've used this live mesh, it is perfectly snapped to this piece of geometry here. Okay, so now if I now click again, I'm going to create more of those vertices. So again, I am retopologizing this mesh. You could potentially have a really dense mesh that is unworkable and difficult to work with. However, it has the kind of overall shape that you want. So you might have maybe made a mesh in ZBrush or Sculptress or Mudbox that isn't kind of workable, and you need to turn that mesh into a workable mesh. So I could make that mesh a live mesh and then go through and create my geometry. Now, one thing with topology that is important to understand is that we are using quads here. So the tool is called Quad Draw, and generally we've been telling you all along to keep your mesh as quads wherever you can. And our quads will tessellate together. This image is in your slides for this week, and it shows you a whole array of different ways that polygons can connect. So if we take this one on the end here, so this is a 12-sided enclosed quad, which means we've got a quad that's in the middle, but then we've got a circularized part around the edge. So this quad here is fairly normal, this quad here is fairly normal, this one's normal, this one's normal, but these ones have their kind of vertices sort of pulled in slightly, which is creating that circular effect there. So I might want to extrude out of that an arm, a pipe, or something like that, and that's keeping my topology circular around that part. This one here is super important as well, and the thing that's special about this one is that it's a 5 poly join, which means there's this one vertex in the middle there, and then there's 5 polys that connect to that one, and this is really good for things like faces and stuff like that, and redirecting flow of topology, and I'll show you how this one works in a second. Generally, you will have this one here, this 4 poly join. This is fairly standard and what you're kind of used to creating here, so there's one vertex in the middle and 4 polys joined to that, so this one's got sort of an extension of that, and it helps you change direction. So if we have a quick look at that on this model before we finish, so I could now add some vertices at the top here and hold shift, so that's now going to create the flow going off the back here. So if I shift click in there, and then if I now click down the bottom here, so these polys are starting to go around, and then if I just now click one up here and then shift click, I have now created more of sort of a straightened out bit of topology over this area. So I've got these 5 quads that are joining together on this single vertex here, and this helps me alter the flow of my topology. Now I could continue doing this whole mesh. I'm not going to do this in this video, but I could continue adding these vertices in and these faces. Again, I've got this circular part going around here, which I would finish up, and I'd have another 5 poly join over here. How would I get that there? Okay, so I'm now getting, again, that other 5 poly join. So this is how a circular kind of bit of geometry welds into something that's a bit more sort of straight and rectangular. You should also be able to move your points around the place. I would then mirror this eventually, so you don't need to solely rely on this tool when you are retopologizing something. Feel free to hop out and use your standard insert edge loop tool. And obviously when I'm moving these around, I am keeping them stuck to the mesh because my mesh is live there. Okay, so in this video we've looked into the quad draw tool that you could use for an array of different sort of purposes. The main one generally being retopology here. So I'm retopologizing this particular mesh. So if I just delete this or move this, let's turn that off. So I've got that bit of geometry there. It's pivot points down the bottom. If I just center that pivot point, move that off, and then if we turn the wireframe on here, you can see that this topology here, it is better than what I had originally. So I'm getting a better join around these parts here. It's flowing around more. Okay. All right. So in this video, we've looked at quad draw, mainly used for retopology. Thank you very much.